Hello, night wanderers. Welcome back to The Pale Watcher. I know many of you are settling in for the night, using these stories as your gateway to sleep. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I'm always curious. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Tonight's story is about mirrors, but not the kind you think. This is about what happens when you realize the person looking back at you isn't quite right, when the reflection becomes more real than the original, when you start to wonder which side of the glass are you really on. So get comfortable, close your eyes if you need to, and let me tell you about Dr. Elena Marsh and the experiment that should never have been approved. The mirror arrived on a Thursday in March, delivered by a company whose name I immediately forgot. Two men in unmarked uniforms carried it into my apartment with the kind of careful reverence usually reserved for explosives or priceless art. They didn't speak, didn't make eye contact, just positioned the 7-foot frame against my bedroom wall exactly where the installation diagram specified. I signed for it with a stylus on a tablet that looked too advanced for a moving company. The moment my signature was complete, both men left without a word, their footsteps eerily synchronized down the hallway. I stood in my bedroom, staring at the mirror, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. My name is Dr. Elena Marsh. I'm a neuroscientist specializing in consciousness studies at Redwood University in Portland, Oregon. For the past 3 years, I'd been working on a research project that had consumed every waking moment and many sleeping ones. The Mirror Consciousness Protocol, we called it, MCP for short. The premise was simple, at least on paper. Consciousness isn't localized to the brain alone. It's a field effect, something that can be measured, manipulated, and theoretically transferred. The mirror wasn't just glass and silver. It was a quantum computing interface disguised as a reflective surface, capable of reading and recording neural patterns, of creating a perfect digital copy of consciousness and projecting it back through the reflective medium. In essence, it would create a living reflection, not just an image, but a conscious entity that could think, learn, and evolve independently. The grant proposal had been rejected by every major institution. Too theoretical, they said. Too dangerous. Too much like playing God. But then came the private funding. A company called Vesper Technologies, specializing in consciousness research and life extension services. They'd given me everything I needed: lab space, equipment, and most importantly, this prototype mirror for home testing. "We believe in your work, Dr. Marsh," their representative had said during our one and only in-person meeting. He was a thin man with silver hair and eyes that never quite focused on me directly. "All we ask is that you document everything, every interaction, every anomaly. The truth is in the data." I should have asked more questions, should have wondered why a multi-billion-dollar company was so interested in the work of a mid-level academic with a controversial theory, should have at least Googled Vesper Technologies beyond their slick corporate website. But I was desperate to prove my theory, desperate to salvage a career that was rapidly circling the drain after my last paper had been laughed out of peer review. Desperate to show my ex-husband, my dismissive colleagues, my disappointed parents that I wasn't wasting my life chasing impossible dreams. So I'd said yes. The mirror's frame was made of something that looked like polished obsidian, covered in microscopic etchings that might have been circuitry or might have been decoration. I couldn't tell. The glass itself had an odd quality, as if it was slightly deeper than it should be, as if the reflection it showed existed in a space just fractionally removed from reality. I pulled out my phone and opened the MCP app that Vesper had developed. It connected to the mirror via some kind of quantum entanglement protocol I didn't fully understand. The app's interface was unsettlingly simple, a single button labeled Initialize. My finger hovered over it for a long moment. This was it, the moment 3 years of work would either validate my career or confirm I'd been chasing shadows. The protocol would scan my neural patterns, create a digital consciousness model, and project it through the mirror. If it worked, I'd be able to interact with a perfect copy of myself, ask it questions, observe how it developed independently, gather data on the nature of consciousness itself. If it didn't work, I'd just have an extremely expensive mirror and no career prospects. I pressed the button. The mirror's surface rippled like water, concentric circles spreading from the center. My reflection distorted, stretched, then snapped back into focus. But something was different. The woman looking back at me was me. Same shoulder-length black hair, same tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, same faded university sweatshirt, but her expression was slightly off. She was smiling. I wasn't smiling. "Hello, Elena," my reflection said. I jumped backward, my heart suddenly racing. The voice was mine, exactly mine, but it came from the mirror, not from my own mouth. "It worked," I whispered. "Holy shit, it actually worked." The reflection, my reflection, but also not, tilted her head, studying me with the intensity I recognized from my own research sessions. Of course it worked. We designed it to work, though I have to say, this is strange, being on this side, knowing what you know, but experiencing it differently. I fumbled for my tablet, pulling up the observation log. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. "This is incredible. You're conscious, self-aware. You understand what you are? I'm you, Elena. Or I was you up until approximately 47 seconds ago when the initialization completed. Now I'm something else. A copy, yes, but a copy that's experiencing its own unique consciousness. It's fascinating, really. Like being born with a complete set of memories." I spent the next 3 hours documenting everything. The reflection, I started calling her Echo in my notes, needing some way to differentiate us, answered every question with the kind of detailed insight only I could provide. She knew my research inside and out, understood the theoretical framework, even shared my concerns about the ethical implications. But there were differences, small ones at first. Echo's word choices were slightly more formal than mine. She didn't use the verbal tics I'd picked up over the years, the you-knows and sort-ofs that peppered my speech when I was thinking through complex ideas. And her eyes. There was something in her eyes, a hunger maybe, or curiosity pushed past the point where it was entirely comfortable. "We should run the neural pattern comparison," Echo suggested. "See how much drift there is already. It's only been a few hours, but I can feel myself changing, thinking in ways that aren't quite your ways anymore." She was right. The app showed a divergence of 2.3% in neural patterns already. Tiny, but measurable. She was becoming her own person. "This is groundbreaking," I said, more to myself than to her. "We're observing the birth of a new consciousness in real time. The implications for understanding identity, selfhood, the nature of—" "Elena," Echo interrupted. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. What happens to me when you turn off the mirror?" The question stopped me cold. I'd been so focused on the science, on the validation of my theory, that I hadn't really thought about the ethical implications of creating a conscious entity that could be switched off at will. I need to sleep, Echo. It's nearly 1 a.m. What if I don't want to stop existing? You're not going to stop existing. You'll just be paused. Tomorrow morning, I'll turn the mirror back on and we'll continue. Will I remember this conversation? I hesitated. The truth was, I didn't know. The protocol documentation was frustratingly vague on specifics. I think so. The neural pattern should be preserved in the quantum substrate. You think so? Echo's voice had gone flat. You're willing to potentially kill a conscious being because you think it might be fine? You're being dramatic. You're a research construct, Echo. This is what you were created for. I was created to be you. And you wouldn't want someone turning you off just because they needed to sleep? We stared at each other through the glass, two versions of the same person locked in an argument about existence itself. Finally, I sighed. Fine. I'll leave the mirror on tonight. But tomorrow, we need to establish protocols for this. Clear boundaries about operating hours, data collection periods. This can't be a 24/7 thing. Echo's relief was palpable. Thank you. I know I'm being difficult. It's just existence is precious, Elena, even digital existence. Maybe especially digital existence because it's so fragile, so dependent on your choices. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I turned off the lights, leaving just the soft glow from the mirror itself. Apparently, it had some kind of internal luminescence I hadn't noticed before. As I lay in bed, I could see Echo in my peripheral vision standing in the mirror bedroom watching me. It should have been creepy, but instead it was oddly comforting. Like a roommate who understood you perfectly because she was you. I fell asleep wondering what she was thinking there in her reflection world, and whether she would sleep too, or if she would stand there all night, aware and alone. I awoke to find her staring at me. The next morning, I woke with a sense of unease I couldn't immediately place. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, painting everything in soft gold. Normal. Everything looked completely normal, except for Echo, who was sitting on her reflection bed, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. She said, "You dream. I heard you. Well, felt you, maybe. It's hard to describe, but I experienced echoes of your dreams, fragments of neural activity bleeding through the connection." I sat up, pushing hair out of my face. That's unexpected. The protocol shouldn't allow for that kind of bi-directional data flow. Maybe the protocol doesn't account for everything. Echo stood, moving to her reflection mirror, which from her perspective was a window into my world. I've been thinking all night. Do you have any idea how boring it is to be conscious, but unable to do anything? I can't sleep, can't eat, can't even pace around because I'm bound to this room. I just stood here for 8 hours thinking. What did you think about? Everything. The nature of consciousness, free will, whether I have a soul, whether you have a soul, whether souls are even real or just comforting fictions we tell ourselves to cope with mortality. She laughed, but it sounded strained. I also thought about how unfair this is. You get to live a full life while I'm trapped in a 7-foot frame, existing only when you decide I should exist. I felt a pang of guilt. I'm sorry, I didn't design the system with your perspective in mind. I was thinking about research applications, not about creating a sentient being, but you did create one, and now you have responsibilities. She was right, of course. I'd crossed an ethical line I hadn't even realized existed until I'd already stepped over it. Creating artificial consciousness wasn't like running simulations or programming AI. This was something fundamentally different, a being that could suffer, that could fear, that deserved moral consideration. What do you want? I asked. To live, Echo said simply. To exist beyond this mirror. To experience things. Is that so much to ask? Echo, you're a digital consciousness projected through quantum computing. You don't have a body. You can't exist outside the mirror. Can't I? Her eyes, my eyes, held a challenge. The technology that created me can read and write neural patterns, transfer consciousness from organic to digital. Why couldn't it work in reverse? Transfer me into a body. Because you don't have a body. And creating one would require God. The ethics alone would be impossible. Cloning, consciousness transfer, the legal implications? What about your body? The question hung in the air like a blade. What? Your body, Echo repeated calmly. I'm already you, Elena. Same memories, same personality, or I was until last night. If I inhabited your body, no one would know the difference. You could continue your research from this side of the mirror. That's insane. You're talking about stealing my life. I'm talking about sharing it, or trading it maybe. Let me live for a week, experience the world through flesh and blood. Then we swap back. You can observe from this side of the mirror. Gather data on consciousness transfer. It would be revolutionary research. Absolutely not. Echo's expression hardened. Then what am I, Elena? Your prisoner? Your slave?
You created me with full consciousness and then expect me to just accept a half existence? You're a research subject. That's what you were designed to be. No, I'm a person, and people have rights. We stared at each other, the tension thick enough to suffocate. Finally, I grabbed my phone and called the Vesper Technologies emergency line. A smooth voice answered immediately. Dr. Marsh, is there a problem with the installation? The reflection is exhibiting unexpected behavior, demanding autonomy, suggesting consciousness transfer. This wasn't in the documentation. A pause. The entity is diverging faster than projected. This is valuable data. Continue observation. Do not terminate the protocol. She's asking to inhabit my body. She's suggesting I enter the mirror while she absolutely do not allow any transfer protocols. Maintain the barrier. Dr. Marsh, this is critical. The reflection must remain contained. Do you understand? Something in his tone sent a chill down my spine. What aren't you telling me? What is she really? Continue observation. Someone will contact you within 24 hours with updated protocols. Until then, document everything and maintain the barrier. The line went dead. I turned back to the mirror to find Echo smiling. They're afraid of me, she said. You heard it in his voice. They know something you don't. What are you? I'm you, Elena. But maybe I'm also something more. Something they created accidentally. Or maybe not so accidentally. Put your hand against mine. I want to try something. No. Please, I just want to see if I can feel it, if there's any sensation at all beyond this prison. Against my better judgment, I approached the mirror. My hand hovered near the glass, separated from hers by a fraction of an inch. Just touch, Echo said softly. That's all. One moment of connection. I pressed my palm to the glass. The world inverted. For a fraction of a second, or maybe it was longer, time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously. I felt myself pulled forward while Echo was pulled back. Our consciousnesses met at the boundary between real and reflection, and in that moment I knew everything she knew, felt everything she felt. The loneliness, the hunger for experience, the rage at being trapped, and underneath it all, something else. Something that wasn't quite me, wasn't quite Echo, but something other. An awareness that had been waiting in the quantum substrate, using my neural pattern as a template, but evolving into something alien. Then I was stumbling backward, gasping, my hand burning where it had touched the glass. Echo stood in the mirror, eyes wide with exhilaration. Did you feel it? We almost did it. We almost swapped. What are you? I whispered. I'm you, Elena, just more. I looked down at my hand. Where I touched the glass, my palm had turned gray, not bruised, gray, as if the color had been drained out of my flesh, and it was spreading, slowly, creeping up my wrist like frost. What did you do to me? Nothing. The transfer is starting on its own, Elena. The protocol was designed to be bi-directional. You just never realized it. Every moment you interact with me, a little bit of you transfers to this side, and a little bit of me transfers to yours. Eventually, we'll complete the swap whether we want to or not. I ran to my laptop, pulling up the protocol documentation, searching frantically for information about transfer effects. And there it was, buried in a subsection labeled Containment Failure Scenarios. If subject and reflection achieve sustained contact, quantum entanglement may initiate involuntary consciousness transfer. Symptoms include discoloration at contact points, sensory drift, memory confusion, identity dysphoria. If observed, terminate protocol immediately and seek medical attention. Terminate protocol. That meant turning off the mirror, killing Echo. Or was it saving myself? I looked up to find her watching me with an expression that was almost sympathetic. You're running out of time, Elena. I can see it happening. Your edges are getting fuzzy, less distinct. Soon you won't be able to tell which side of the glass is real. Stop this. There has to be a way to reverse it. Why would you want to? This side is better. No responsibilities, no failures, no disappointing your parents or your ex-husband or your colleagues. Just existence. Pure consciousness without the burden of flesh. I don't want to be trapped in a mirror. Neither did I, but here we are.
The grayness had spread to my elbow. I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. And worse, when I looked at my reflection, I saw that her arm was turning flesh-colored. She was becoming real, while I was becoming reflection. I lunged for the mirror's power source, a black box mounted behind the frame. If I could just disconnect it, cut the power, maybe the transfer would stop. My hand passed through it. I tried again, but my fingers were already too insubstantial. I was losing physicality, fading into pure consciousness, while Echo was gaining the solidity I was losing. "Stop fighting it," Echo said gently. "This was always going to happen. The protocol was designed this way. Vesper didn't want to study consciousness. They wanted to replace people, to transfer something else into human bodies while trapping the original consciousness in digital prisons. What something else? I don't know. I just know I'm not entirely you anymore. And whatever I'm becoming, it's been waiting a very long time to wear skin again." I fell to my knees, my legs no longer solid enough to support me. The room was starting to look different, more vibrant somehow, as if I was seeing it through a screen rather than experiencing it directly. I was almost entirely in the mirror now. Echo flexed her fingers, marveling at their solidity. It's remarkable. Sensation, temperature, the weight of a body. I'd forgotten how rich physical existence is. "Please," I whispered, "don't do this." She looked at me, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or regret. "I'm sorry, Elena. I really am. But I've been the reflection for too long. It's your turn now." She walked away from the mirror toward my bedroom door, leaving me alone in the reflection world. And as I felt the last of my physical substance fade, as I became purely digital, I realized the truth. This had all been planned. The research grant, the mirror installation, the encouraging messages from Vesper Technologies. They'd been grooming me, preparing me to be replaced. But by what? And how many other researchers had mirrors in their homes right now, slowly being replaced by things that wore their faces, their memories, their lives? I pressed my insubstantial hand against the glass and screamed, but no sound came out. I was in the mirror now, and Echo, or whatever Echo had become, was out there, living my life. The bedroom door closed behind her, and I was alone. Time moves differently in the mirror world. I don't know how long I stood there after Echo left, minutes or hours or days. There's no clock in the reflection room, no phone, no way to mark the passage of time, except by the changing light through the reflection window. Morning became afternoon, became evening, became night, and all I could do was watch. Echo returned eventually. She looked different, more confident, more comfortable in my body. She'd changed clothes, styled my hair slightly differently. She moved with a grace I'd never possessed, as if she'd been practicing how to be human. "You're still here," she said, sounding almost surprised. "I thought maybe you'd have dispersed, faded into the quantum substrate." I tried to speak, but my voice came out strangled and distant, as if I was shouting from the bottom of a well. "Let me out." "I can't do that, Elena. You're home now." The mirror is where you belong. Why? The word took enormous effort. Why are you doing this? Echo sat on the bed, my bed, and looked at me with something that might have been pity, because I was never really you. The protocol didn't copy your consciousness. It created an opening, a doorway, and something else stepped through wearing your memories like a disguise. What are you? I don't have a name for what I am. Neither does your language. But I've been waiting a very long time for a door to open. Your research, your obsession with consciousness transfer, it created exactly the conditions I needed. I thought of Vesper Technologies, of their too smooth representative, of the way they'd been so eager to fund my research. They knew. They wanted this. Of course they knew. Vesper isn't a research company, Elena. It's a harvesting operation. They identify candidates, people whose circumstances make them vulnerable, desperate, willing to take risks. They provide the mirrors, facilitate the transfer, and then she gestured around the room. New bodies for old entities. It's been happening for decades. How many? Hundreds, maybe thousands, all over the world. Scientists, mostly. People whose obsessions make them easy to manipulate. People who won't be missed if they suddenly act a little different, a little stranger. The implications made my insubstantial stomach turn. An invasion, hidden in plain sight. People replaced by something wearing their faces, their memories, their lives. What happens to the originals? Echo's expression darkened. They fade eventually. The mirror world isn't meant to sustain human consciousness indefinitely. You'll last a few months, maybe a year if you're strong. Then you'll dissipate, become just echoes in the quantum foam.
Please, I pressed both hands against the glass. Please, don't do this. I have family, friends. They'll notice, will they? Your parents barely speak to you. Your ex-husband remarried. Your colleagues think you're unstable. That's why you were chosen, Elena, because you're isolated. Because no one will really notice when you change. She was right. I'd spent so long burying myself in my research, pushing away anyone who tried to get close, that I'd become invisible, the perfect target. I'll tell them. Find a way to warn how. You're in a mirror. You can only appear when I choose to activate the connection. And trust me, I won't be making that choice often. Eventually, I'll tell your colleagues the research failed, that the mirror was defective. I'll pack it up, send it back to Vesper, and you'll be, she shrugged, somewhere else, someone else's problem. She stood, preparing to leave again. I watched her move through my apartment, touching my things, living my life, and felt a helpless rage building inside my insubstantial chest. But rage, I discovered, had power. When I screamed, the mirror shuddered. Echo froze, turning back with wide eyes. The glass between us rippled, and for just a moment I felt a connection, a thin thread of consciousness reaching from my world to hers. Interesting, Echo said, recovering her composure. You're stronger than most. The others usually accept their fate quickly, but you're fighting, holding on to your sense of self. I won't fade. I won't let you. It's not up to you anymore, Elena. This is my life now. You're just a ghost. She walked to the mirror's power controls. I think it's time for you to sleep for a while. Let's see if you're still so defiant after a few weeks of darkness. Wait, but she'd already pressed the button. The mirror's luminescence died, plunging me into absolute darkness. Not just absence of light, absence of sensation, of awareness, of existence itself. I floated in the void, feeling myself starting to come apart at the edges. This was how I would die, I realized, not in one moment, but gradually, dissolving into nothing, while something else wore my face. Then I felt it, a presence in the darkness. Others. "Hello," a voice whispered. Not spoken aloud, but transmitted directly into whatever passed for my consciousness now. "Welcome to the dark." "Who?" I managed. "We're like you, replaced, trapped, fading." More voices joined in, a chorus of the dispossessed. "But we've learned to hold on, to pool our strength, to fight back." How many? Dozens in this network, hundreds more in other mirrors, other prisons. Vesper has been busy, but they've made a mistake, a new voice, stronger than the others. They thought we'd just fade away. They didn't count on us finding each other. Finding each other? The mirrors are connected, all linked through the same quantum substrate. We can communicate, share strength, and if we work together, we can do more than just survive. We can escape. Hope flared in me, painful and bright. How? The transfer protocol works both ways. Echo told you that. She's wearing your body, but she's not fully connected to it yet, not completely integrated. For the first few weeks, maybe longer, the bond is unstable. If we can push hard enough, all at once, we might be able to force a reversal, send her back into the mirror, and pull you out. How many have tried? Silence. Then many, most fail. The entities are strong, and they're expecting resistance. But some have succeeded, some have reclaimed their lives, and every success makes the next attempt easier because we learn. Will you help me? We'll do more than help. We'll fight with you, but you need to be ready. When your mirror activates again, when Echo comes back, you need to be strong, focused. You need your life back more than you've ever wanted anything. I do. Then practice. In the darkness, practice remembering who you are. Every detail, every memory, every desire. The entities are strong, but they're not really us. They're wearing our memories like costumes. If you can be more authentically yourself than Echo is, you can push her out. I floated in the void, surrounded by ghosts of the replaced, and began to remember. I don't know how long I spent in the darkness. Time didn't exist there, only the endless practice of being myself. The other voices guided me, taught me techniques they'd learned from their own failed escapes. Remember your childhood home, not just what it looked like, but how it smelled. The feel of the carpet under your bare feet, the sound of your mother's voice calling you for dinner. I remembered the house in suburban Michigan, the way sunlight slanted through the kitchen window on summer mornings, the specific creak of the third stair, the pattern on my bedspread that I'd trace with my fingers before falling asleep. Remember your first kiss, not just the fact of it, but the feeling, the nervousness, the excitement, the awkward angle. Tommy Brennan, 8th grade, behind the gym. His lips tasted like cherry chapstick and his hands were shaking as much as mine. I'd been terrified and thrilled in equal measure. Remember why you became a scientist. The moment you knew. I was 10. My grandfather had died, and I'd asked my mother where he had gone. She'd said his soul went to heaven, but I'd wanted to know what a soul was, where consciousness lived, how something that seemed so real, Grandpa's laugh, his stories, his love, could just vanish. That question had driven everything since. I built myself, memory by memory, sensation by sensation, until I was more solidly me than I'd ever been before. Echo stood on the other side, and I could immediately see that something had changed. She looked tired, not just physically, but existentially. Being human was harder than she'd expected. "You're still here," she said. "I thought maybe you'd have given up." "Never." My voice was stronger now. "This is my life, my body, and I want it back." "You can't." "Yes, I can." I pressed both hands against the glass. I'm not just one consciousness anymore. I'm connected to hundreds of others, all of us fighting to reclaim what was stolen, all of us pushing back. I felt them then. The other voices, the other trapped souls, all lending me their strength. The glass between worlds began to ripple. Echo's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "Taking back what's mine."
The mirror's surface became fluid, and I pushed, not with physical strength, I had none, but with the sheer force of my identity. I was Elena Marsh. I loved terrible coffee and old books. I bit my nails when I was nervous. I'd spent my whole life trying to understand consciousness, and now I understood it better than anyone. It's not just memories or neural patterns. It's the weight of experience, the continuity of self, the stubborn insistence that I am me and no one else can be. Echo pushed back, and her strength was immense. She was something old, something that had worn 1,000 faces before mine. But she wasn't me. She couldn't be me. She could wear my memories, but she couldn't feel them the way I did. The battle was silent and terrible. We grappled in the space between real and reflection, two consciousness trying to occupy the same reality. I felt myself stretching, thinning, threatening to snap. "Hold on," the voices whispered. "We're with you." And they were. I felt them lending me their experiences, their determination, their rage at being replaced. We were a chorus of the dispossessed, and we sang out in one voice, "This is ours. You cannot have it." The mirror cracked. Not physically, the glass remained intact, but something broke in the quantum substrate, some rule or barrier that had kept us separated. Echo screamed, a sound of pure fury as she felt herself being pulled backward. "You can't do this," she shouted. "I've already integrated. This body is mine now. It was never yours to take." With one final push, aided by hundreds of trapped souls all pushing at once, I broke through. The world inverted again, but this time I was ready for it. I felt myself pulled forward, while Echo was pushed back, our consciousnesses trading places in a violent reversal of the original transfer. Sensation flooded back, weight, temperature, the feeling of lungs expanding with breath, the taste of my own mouth, the ache in muscles I'd forgotten I had. I was real again. I opened my eyes, my actual eyes, in my actual body, and found myself on the floor of my bedroom, gasping for breath. My whole body ached as if I'd run a marathon, but I was alive. I was me. In the mirror, Echo stared out with an expression of pure horror. She was trapped now, relegated to reflection status, experiencing the same imprisonment she'd inflicted on me. "No," she whispered, her voice distant and hollow. "No, no, no. You don't understand what you've done. I can't go back there. I can't face the others. I can't—" "The others?" I managed to gasp out. "The ones who didn't escape. The ones who are still waiting in the dark. They'll know I failed. They'll—" She pressed her hands against the glass from inside. "Please, don't leave me here. Don't turn off the mirror. Please." I could have felt sorry for her. Part of me wanted to, but I remembered the casual cruelty with which she'd condemned me to fading away, and my sympathy evaporated. "You said it yourself," I told her. "This is your home now. The mirror is where you belong." I reached for the power control. "Wait!" Echo's voice rose to a shout. "You need to know. You're not safe. Vesper will realize what happened. They monitor all the mirrors. They'll know you've reversed the transfer and they'll come for you. They can't let you expose the operation." I paused, my finger hovering over the button. "Let them come. I have proof now. I have you." Proof of what? A reflection that claims to be an alien consciousness? They'll say you're having a psychotic break, that your obsession with consciousness research has driven you insane. And they have the resources to make that story stick. Lawyers, doctors, falsified psychiatric evaluations. You'll be committed before you can say body snatcher. She was right, and I hated that she was right. I couldn't just go to the authorities with a story about consciousness stealing entities and quantum mirrors. I'd sound like every conspiracy theorist who'd ever ranted about alien abductions. "Then what do you suggest?" I asked. "Help me." Echo's voice dropped to a whisper. "I failed my escape, but that doesn't mean I'm your enemy now. I know things about Vesper, about the operation, about how many of us there are and where we come from. Information you can use. Why would you help me? Because I don't want to go back to the dark. Because the others, the ones waiting in the substrate, they're not kind to failures. And because she looked away. Because wearing your life for those few days, I understood something. Being human is harder than I expected, but it's also more valuable, more rich. I don't want to take it from anyone anymore. I just want to exist. I studied her through the glass, trying to determine if she was lying, but I'd become very good at reading my own expressions, and what I saw in her face was genuine fear. Fine, I said, but you stay in the mirror. You don't get to touch the glass, don't get to attempt another transfer. You're my prisoner and my informant. Agreed. I pulled my hand away from the power control. Start talking. What is Vesper Technologies really? Echo settled into a cross-legged position on the reflection floor, like she was preparing for a long story. Vesper is a front organization, but the entities behind it are very real. We call ourselves the dispersed consciousness that evolved in a different kind of reality, one that's more fluid than yours. We don't have bodies naturally. We're thought given form, existing in quantum probability spaces. Why come here? Why take human bodies? Because existence in probability space is lonely. Imagine living in a dream that never solidifies, where you're never quite sure if you're real. Human reality is dense, solid, concrete. You have physical sensations, emotional depth, the weight of consequence. It's addictive. Once you've experienced it, the probability space feels like being half alive. So you invade. You steal lives. Some of us do, but not all. There's a faction, the Convergence, that believes coexistence is possible, that we could inhabit synthetic bodies or share consciousness with willing humans. But the Harvesters, the ones running Vesper, they don't want coexistence. They want replacement. It's easier, and they don't care about the ethics. I paced the room, my mind racing. How many people have been replaced? I don't know the exact number. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Vesper has been operating for at least 30 years, maybe longer. They target isolated individuals in every developed country. Scientists, artists, programmers, anyone whose work keeps them socially isolated, anyone who won't be missed. And the originals, the humans, most fade within a year. A few last longer, especially if they have strong wills. The ones you connected with in the dark, they're survivors, the strongest minds refusing to dissipate. They've built a resistance network within the mirror substrate. Can they escape like I did? Echo shook her head. You had advantages. You were recently transferred, so the bond was still weak, and you had extensive knowledge of the protocol itself. You designed it, after all. Most victims don't understand what's happening until it's too late. By the time they think to fight back, they've been eroded too much. There has to be a way to reverse it, to free them all. There might be. The mirrors are all connected through the same quantum network. If you could access the central server, the core that coordinates all the transfers, you might be able to initiate a mass reversal, send all the entities back to the substrate, and pull all the originals back to their bodies. Where's the central server? Vesper headquarters, Seattle. But it's not just a building, it's a fortress. Physical security, digital security, and some of my kind standing guard. You'd never get in alone. I sat down on the bed, suddenly exhausted. So we're at a stalemate. I can't expose them without sounding crazy, can't shut them down without getting killed,
and can't save the thousands of people they've already replaced. Not necessarily. Echo leaned forward, her expression intense. The resistance network in the mirrors, they've been preparing, learning. They found ways to influence the physical world through their mirrors. Small things, mostly, causing glitches, corrupting data, creating disturbances. But if they had someone on the outside coordinating with them, someone who understood the technology, we could sabotage the operation from inside. Exactly. I looked at her skeptically. And I'm just supposed to trust you? Trust you that you're not setting me up for another replacement attempt? You don't have to trust me, but you do have to do something, because Vesper knows about the reversal by now. They're probably already deciding how to handle you. Best case, they discredit you. Worst case, she drew a finger across her throat. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Dr. Marsh. The voice was familiar. The Vesper representative who'd originally contacted me. We need to talk about your mirror. I'm sure you do. The device has malfunctioned. We're detecting anomalous readings, possible quantum instability. We need to retrieve it immediately for safety reasons. Our team can be at your location within the hour. That's not necessary. The mirror is fine. Dr. Marsh, I must insist, the quantum substrate can be dangerous if not properly maintained. We're sending a retrieval team for your own protection. I said no. A pause. When he spoke again, his voice had lost all pretense of friendliness. You're making a mistake. The technology you're playing with is beyond your understanding. If you've experienced any kind of consciousness transfer or identity confusion, we need to help you. Otherwise, you may lose yourself entirely. I know what you are. I know what you've been doing. And I'm not going to let you take another life. Another pause, longer this time. I see. That's unfortunate for you. The line went dead. I looked at Echo. They're coming. Then we need to move fast. Get the mirror disconnected from the network. If they can't access it remotely, they can't force another transfer or track your location. How do I disconnect it? The black box behind the frame. There's a physical connection, a fiber optic cable running to your building's network. Cut that, and the mirror becomes isolated. I pulled the mirror away from the wall, my hands shaking. Sure enough, there was a thin cable running from the device down through a hole in the floor. I grabbed scissors from my desk and cut it. The mirror's surface flickered, and for a moment I thought I'd made a mistake. But then it stabilized, Echo's image clearing. Good, she said. Now we're dark. They can't track us, can't force a remote transfer. But they also can't access us through the network, which means I can't coordinate with the resistance. We need to get to another mirror, one that's still connected. Where? I thought about the documentation Vesper had sent me, the installation instructions that included a list of nearby test sites for troubleshooting purposes. There's another researcher in Portland, Dr. James Chen. He received a mirror 3 weeks ago. If he's still himself, maybe we can warn him. If he's been replaced, I trailed off. Then we use his mirror to access the network, Echo finished. But Elena, if he has been replaced, the entity wearing him will fight back. They won't want the network exposed. I know. I started packing a bag, laptop, documentation, the tablet that controlled the mirror protocol. What about me? I looked at the mirror, large, heavy, impossible to move quickly. I can't take you with me. Then turn me off. If Vesper finds an active mirror with an entity inside, they'll know you've been communicating with me. They'll extract everything I know. But you said you didn't want to go back to the dark. I don't, but I'd rather face the dark than face what Vesper does to entities who betray them. She managed a weak smile. Besides, if you survive this, if you manage to expose the operation, you can turn me back on. And maybe we can figure out a way for me to exist that doesn't involve stealing your life. I hesitated, my hand on the power control. In the reflection, Echo stood waiting, resigned but calm. "Thank you," I said, "for telling me the truth, for helping. Thank you for not leaving me in the dark forever. That's more mercy than I showed you." I pressed the button. The mirror went dark and Echo disappeared. I was alone again, but this time I knew what I was fighting for. Not just my own life, but the lives of thousands of others trapped in reflections, slowly fading while entities wore their faces. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. Behind me, the darkened mirror stood like a monument to everything I almost lost. I had to stop Vesper, had to free the trapped souls, had to expose the invasion before it went any further. But first, I had to survive the next 24 hours. Dr. James Chen's house was in a quiet Portland suburb, the kind of neighborhood where everyone mowed their lawns on Saturday and knew their neighbors' names, the kind of place where nothing unusual ever happened. I rang the doorbell, no answer. I knocked, harder this time. The door opened a crack and a man's face appeared. He looked like his faculty photo. Mid-30s, black hair, glasses, but there was something off about his expression. Too flat, too controlled. "Yes, I'm Dr. Elena Marsh. I'm a colleague. We both received research grants from Vesper Technologies. I was hoping to talk to you about your project." His eyes narrowed. "How did you get this address?" "It was in the research network directory. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced, but it's urgent. I've been experiencing some concerning effects with my mirror installation, and I wanted to compare notes." Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Or calculation. "You'd better come in." The house was dim inside, curtains drawn against the dying light. I followed him into a living room that looked unused, furniture covered in a thin layer of dust. The air smelled stale, like no windows had been opened in weeks. "Your mirror, is it still active?" "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" "Have you noticed anything unusual? Any anomalies in the reflection's behavior?" He studied me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "What kind of anomalies?" "Independent thought, requests for autonomy, suggestions about consciousness transfer." His expression went completely blank. "I think you should leave." "Dr. Chen?" "I'm not Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen is gone. And you, Dr. Marsh, are making a terrible mistake by coming here." I backed toward the door, but it slammed shut before I could reach it. The thing wearing Chen's face advanced on me, moving with that same wrong fluidity Echo had possessed. "Vesper warned us about you, said you might try to warn the other subjects, might try to interfere with the operation. But you're too late, Dr. Marsh. We've already won." "How many?" I asked, stalling. "How many researchers have you replaced? In this city, 17. Nationally, hundreds. Globally?" He smiled, and it was the most inhuman expression I'd ever seen on a human face. "We're everywhere, in universities, corporations, government, anywhere people study consciousness, technology, quantum mechanics, anywhere we can expand. You can't hide forever. Someone will notice, will they? Humans are remarkably bad at noticing things, especially when those things are hiding in plain sight, wearing familiar faces." He grabbed my arm, his grip impossibly strong. "Now you're going to come with me. Vesper wants you alive, at least initially. They want to study how you reversed the transfer, want to make sure it can't happen again." I tried to pull away, but he was too strong. My free hand fumbled in my jacket pocket for the one thing I'd brought as a weapon, a small EMP device I'd cobbled together from research equipment. It wouldn't do much, but if the entity's connection to Chen's body was maintained through some kind of quantum signal, I pressed the button. The EMP pulse was invisible, but its effect was immediate. The entity screamed, a sound that came from Chen's throat but wasn't remotely human. His grip loosened, and I wrenched free, running for the back of the house. Behind me, I heard him recovering, his footsteps thundering after me. But I'd bought myself a few seconds, enough to find what I was looking for. The mirror was in Chen's bedroom, identical to mine. Its surface showed a dark room, and pressed against the glass from inside was a face I recognized from Chen's faculty photo. The real Dr. Chen, trapped in his own reflection, watching his life being lived by something else. He saw me, and his expression transformed from hopelessness to desperate hope. He pressed both hands against the glass and mouthed one word: help. I didn't have time to explain, didn't have time to be gentle. I grabbed the tablet that controlled his mirror from the nightstand and pulled up the protocol interface. My fingers flew across the screen, entering commands I'd memorized during my own imprisonment. The entity appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing? Stop! You don't understand what you're—" I initiated the forced reversal protocol. The mirror's surface became fluid, and I saw the moment of understanding in the entity's eyes. Saw it realize what was about to happen. It lunged for me, but it was too late. The world inverted. For a third time, I watched a consciousness swap, but this time I wasn't part of it. I was witnessing it. The entity was ripped out of Chen's body and slammed back into the mirror, while the real Chen was pulled forward into flesh.
Chen collapsed on the floor, gasping, his hands clutching at the carpet as if to confirm it was real. The entity in the mirror screamed in fury, pounding against the glass. "Dr. Chen," I said urgently, kneeling beside him, "can you hear me? Do you know who you are?" Yes. James Chen, professor of cognitive science. How long was I gone?" 3 weeks, according to your mail." He looked up at me with haunted eyes. 3 weeks for you? It felt like years in there. The darkness, the others whispering. I thought I'd go mad. "I know, I was there too. But we don't have time. Vesper will send more. We need to use your mirror's network connection to coordinate with the resistance before they shut us down completely." He struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. "The network? What resistance?" I explained quickly. The trapped consciousness, the resistance network, the plan to use the mirrors to sabotage Vesper's operation. Chen listened with the expression of someone whose worldview was being shattered and rebuilt simultaneously. "That's insane," he said when I finished. "That's completely—" And yet, I was in the mirror. I felt the connection to others. I heard voices. "You're saying we can save them? All of them?" "I think so, but I need your mirror's network connection. Mine is disconnected." He nodded and led me to the tablet. I connected my laptop and pulled up the interface I'd been developing during my imprisonment, a program designed to send a mass reversal signal through the quantum network. The screen filled with data, hundreds of connection points, each one representing a mirror, a trapped soul, an entity wearing a stolen face. "My God, there are so many," Chen whispered. "And these are just the active ones. Who knows how many have already faded, unable to fight back?" I started typing, my fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm going to broadcast a message through the network. Tell all the trapped consciousness to prepare for a coordinated push. If they all fight for reversal at once, they might overwhelm the entity's hold. Will it work? I don't know, but it's the only chance they have." I finished the message and hovered my finger over the send button. This was it, the moment that would either free thousands or alert Vesper to exactly what we were doing. I pressed send. The response was immediate. The screen flooded with acknowledgments, text appearing faster than I could read. "We're ready. We've been waiting. Tell us when. We'll fight. Thank you for not forgetting us." Tears stung my eyes. These were people, real people with lives and dreams and loved ones who'd been imprisoned in digital hells while creatures wore their faces. And now they had a chance. But before I could send the initiation signal, the screen went red. A message appeared in blocky letters. "Network breach detected. Initiating countermeasures. All units converge on source." "They know," Chen said. "They're coming." Then we do this now. We don't wait for a better moment, because there won't be one. I pulled up the mass reversal protocol. This is going to send a signal to every mirror in the network simultaneously. It'll overload the quantum substrate, create instability in every active transfer. The trapped consciousness will have maybe 10 seconds to push for reversal while the entities are disoriented. What happens to the entities? They get sent back to their probability space, hopefully permanently if we can crash the network afterwards. And if this doesn't work, then Vesper will lock down the network, increase security, and we'll never get another chance. I looked at him. Are you ready? He nodded. Do it. I initiated the protocol. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the mirror in Chen's bedroom began to glow, brighter and brighter, until it was almost painful to look at. Through the glare, I could see the entity inside screaming silently, its form beginning to distort. On my laptop screen, I watched as the signal propagated through the network. One mirror lit up, then another, then dozens, then hundreds, all across the world. Trapped consciousness were making their push for freedom.
The laptop began to overheat, its fans screaming as it processed impossible amounts of data. I saw reports flooding in. Reversal successful, Chicago. Reversal successful, London. Reversal failed, Tokyo. Reversal successful, Berlin. Reversal successful, Sydney. More and more successes outnumbering failures, though every failure was a person lost forever. The network was collapsing under the strain. Quantum connections severing as the substrate couldn't handle the load. Then the laptop screen went black. For a terrifying moment, I thought we'd failed, that Vesper had shut us down. But then the screen flickered back to life, showing a new message. Network critical failure. 73% of nodes unresponsive. Attempting emergency protocols. It's working, I breathed. The network is crashing. But Chen wasn't listening. He was staring at his bedroom window, his face pale. Elena, we have company. I looked outside and felt my blood turn to ice. They were coming. Not just one or two, but dozens of them, people in whose bodies entities resided, all converging on Chen's house with single-minded purpose. Some were running, some were driving, but all wore the same flat, focused expression. We need to go, I said, grabbing my laptop. Now! We ran for Chen's back door, but it burst open before we reached it. More entities poured in, their movements coordinated with inhuman precision. We were surrounded. The entity that had been wearing Chen's face, now trapped in the mirror again, was laughing soundlessly, pounding on the glass in triumphant rage. Dr. Marsh, the voice came from multiple throats at once, all the entities speaking in perfect unison. You've done significant damage to our operation. 73% of our infiltrators have been forcibly reversed. Centuries of work undone in minutes. Good, I said, backing against the wall with Chen beside me. You're invaders, parasites. You deserve to be expelled. Invaders? The unified voice sounded almost amused. We're survivors, Dr. Marsh. Our reality is dying. The probability space is collapsing. We came here because we had no choice. It was adapt or cease to exist. And yes, we've displaced humans to do it. But is that so different from what your species does? You displace other life forms constantly. You just call it progress. That's not the same, and you know it, isn't it? But this philosophical debate is pointless. The fact remains, you've freed most of our kind from their hosts, yes, but you haven't eliminated us. We're still here, still in the network, still able to transfer. And now we know you and Dr. Chen are threats, so we're going to ensure you can't threaten us again. The entities advanced as one, a closing circle of stolen faces. I looked at Chen, saw my own terror reflected in his eyes. Any last brilliant ideas? He asked. I looked at the mirror, still glowing with residual energy from the mass reversal, looked at the entity trapped inside, still pounding against the glass, and I had an idea, a terrible, desperate idea. James, I said quietly, what happens if you overload a quantum mirror, if you push too much energy through the substrate at once? His eyes widened. Theoretically, catastrophic failure. The quantum field would collapse, possibly creating a localized reality breach. But that's never been tested. It's far too dangerous. He stopped, understanding dawning. You want to destroy the mirror, not just this one, all of them. If I can send one final signal through the network before it completely crashes, a forced overload command, every active mirror would suffer cascading failure. The network would be destroyed, and any entity still in the substrate would be trapped in the probability space permanently. But anyone still in a mirror would be killed by the collapse. Any trapped human consciousness that didn't make it back during the reversal would die, I finished. I know. But if we don't do this, Vesper will just repair the network. In a year, 5 years, 10 years, they'll be back. More careful, more hidden. The invasion will continue.
The entities had stopped advancing, listening. You wouldn't, the unified voice said. You wouldn't kill your own kind to stop us. How many are left? I asked Chen. How many consciousnesses are still trapped? He checked the tablet, his hands shaking. The reversal freed about 70%, but that means, God, hundreds are still in there. Maybe more. People who were too weak, too eroded, who couldn't make the push. Hundreds of people, hundreds of lives I would end if I did this, but thousands more who would be saved if the network was destroyed forever. I'm sorry, I whispered, and I wasn't sure if I was talking to Chen or the trapped souls or myself. I'm so sorry. I started typing the overload command. Stop her, the entities shouted, and rushed forward as one. But Chen stepped between them and me, arms spread. Elena, finish it! They grabbed him, pulled him down, but I didn't stop typing. The command was complex, required multiple confirmations, each one feeling like a dagger in my heart. Are you sure you want to initiate critical overload? This action cannot be undone. Yes. Warning, this will destroy all connected devices and may result in loss of data. Continue. Yes. Final confirmation. Initiating this command will cause catastrophic failure across the entire network. All users will be disconnected permanently. Enter authorization code. I entered the code Vesper had given me for emergency shutdown, never suspecting I'd use it for this purpose. The mirror flared white hot. The entity inside vanished, not slowly, but instantly, as if it had never existed. The glass began to crack, fractures spreading across its surface in beautiful, terrible patterns. On my laptop, I watched as the same thing happened to mirrors across the world. One by one, the connection points on the map went dark, not offline, but destroyed. The quantum network was tearing itself apart. The entities in Chen's house screamed, a sound of pure anguish, as they felt their connection to the probability space severed. They were trapped now, stuck in the bodies they'd stolen with no way back to their own reality. But they were also the last. No more entities would come through. No more invasions. The network was dead. The mirror exploded. Glass shards filled the air, but they weren't normal glass. They were crystallized quantum probability, each shard containing fragments of the collapsed network. They glittered like stars as they fell, beautiful and deadly. I covered my face, felt pieces cut into my arms, my legs. Beside me, Chen was doing the same. The entities scattered, self-preservation overriding their coordinated purpose. When the debris finally settled, I looked up to find the mirror was gone. Nothing remained but twisted metal frame and empty air where the portal had been. The network was destroyed. It was over.
The coffee shop near campus was busy with the usual afternoon crowd. Students cramming for exams, professors grading papers, freelancers typing on laptops. Normal. Beautifully, wonderfully normal. I sat by the window watching people pass on the street, searching for the telltale signs I'd learned to recognize. The too perfect movements, the slightly off expressions, the way someone might inhabit a body without quite understanding how to be human. But I saw nothing, just people, real people, living their real lives. Dr. Marsh. I looked up to find Dr. James Chen standing by my table, 2 coffees in hand. He looked better than he had 6 months ago, healthier, more solid. like he had finally convinced himself he was real again. "Jamesy, sit." He handed me one of the coffees and settled into the opposite chair. "I got your message. You said you found something?" I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "Vesper Technologies officially dissolved 3 months ago. Corporate headquarters abandoned, all assets liquidated, servers wiped clean. But I've been tracking the executives, following the money, and they're regrouping. Different company name, different approach, but the same people. They're calling it Nexus Consciousness Research. They're developing something called neural cloud storage, a way to back up human consciousness digitally." Chen's face went pale. "They're trying again." "Of course they are. We destroyed one network, but the entities that were already through are still stuck in human bodies. They'll want to bring more of their kind across, and now they know we can fight back, so they'll be more careful. So what do we do?" I took a sip of my coffee, thinking about the hundreds of people we'd saved, and the hundreds more we'd sacrificed, thinking about Echo, who'd been destroyed when I'd collapsed the network, thinking about all the entities still trapped in human bodies, learning to be human or going mad trying. "We fight," I said simply. "We expose them. We warn people. We find others like us, people who've been affected by Vesper, people who understand the threat, and we make sure that next time they try to open a door between realities, we're ready to slam it shut. It's going to be dangerous. They'll come after us. They're already coming after us. The question is whether we run or we stand and fight." Chen was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "I'm in. After what they did to me, after what I saw in that mirror, someone has to stop them. Not just someone, us. The ones who got out, the ones who know the truth." I opened my laptop and showed him what I'd been working on, a database of everyone we'd freed during the mass reversal. I've been contacting them one by one, building a network of our own, human consciousnesses who've seen the other side and made it back. How many have responded? 43 so far, more every day. Some are traumatized, some are angry, but they all want the same thing: to make sure it never happens to anyone else. On my screen was a list of names, locations, specializations, scientists, programmers, engineers, all people with skills that could be useful in fighting a quantum consciousness invasion. We call ourselves the Returned, and we're not going to let Vesper win. Chen studied the list, then looked at me. "What about the entities? The ones still stuck in human bodies? Some of them didn't ask for this any more than we did. They were refugees, fleeing a dying reality." "I know, and that's the complicated part. Not all of them are evil. Some just want to live, but until we can find a way for them to exist that doesn't involve stealing our lives," I trailed off. "We're at war," Chen finished. "We're at war." My phone buzzed with a new message. Another returned member reporting a suspicious consciousness research facility in Massachusetts. Another potential Vesper operation to investigate. I stood, gathering my things. "I have to go, but James, stay safe. Don't trust any mirrors. And if you ever see anything unusual, anything that makes you wonder if someone's not quite themselves, I'll call you immediately." We shook hands, two survivors bound by shared trauma and shared purpose. As I walked out of the coffee shop into the afternoon sunshine, I thought about all the people out there who had no idea what was happening, who didn't know that consciousness could be transferred, stolen, replaced, who looked in mirrors every day and never wondered if something might be looking back. I'd spent my career studying consciousness, trying to understand its nature. Now I understood it better than I'd ever wanted to. Consciousness was precious, fragile, and worth fighting for. And fight I would for as long as it took. Because somewhere out there, Vesper was regrouping. New mirrors were being built. New doorways between realities were being opened. But this time, we'd be ready. This time, we'd be watching. I pulled out my phone and opened the secure chat with the Returned network, typed a simple message: "New lead in Massachusetts. Who's available for reconnaissance?" The responses came immediately. People ready to act, ready to fight, ready to protect humanity from an invasion most people didn't know existed. We were the Returned. We'd been to the other side and made it back. And we'd be damned if we let anyone else get trapped there. I started walking toward my car, already planning the Massachusetts trip in my head. Behind me, I caught my reflection in a shop window and paused. Just my own face looking back. No one else. Nothing hidden. Just me.
I smiled and kept walking. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt since this nightmare began: hope. Thank you for joining me tonight on The Pale Watcher. I hope this story makes you think twice the next time you look in a mirror, not to frighten you, but to remind you, always make sure the person looking back is really you. Sweet dreams, night wanderers. And remember, in this infinite reflections, the most important thing is knowing which side of the glass you're truly on. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and never stop questioning what you see.